Hi guys, hi, hello. Welcome back. What we're talking about today is going to be more about Jimmy Carter and his time in office. We're going to be discussing his foreign policy and the big events that take place around the world and how he reacts to them. And an aspect of this whole approach here is going to be a comparison between Nixon and Carter in regards to their foreign policy. So, again, paying close attention, getting the good notes, because here we go. So, uh, when it comes to Jimmy Carter, he comes into the White House as a paragon of morality. He is this guy who is very open about the fact that he thinks that the country has got out of whack and that it is necessary for the leader to, again, try and reverse some of the wrongs here. So you can see it a little bit in his domestic policy, the fact that he's trying really hard to set a good example for the country. His administration, the physical makeup of it is one of the most diverse in history, seeing different minorities, women, all kinds of things like that. He doesn't again pass any laws or legislations to kind of address a lot of the ongoing civil rights issues, affirmative action being the one that again is really controversial at this time. But he's basically distracted by other things, the energy crisis, which we talked about yesterday. The fact that there is simply not enough for us in our flailing economy, so on and so forth. The rest of a president's time in office, again, thinking yesterday we talked domestic stuff, this is really looking at the foreign policy items, international. So he, when he comes into office, throws out realpolitik. Realpolitik, remember, stated in a very simplistic way that we would negotiate and engage with only powerful countries and that anything else was secondary. It wasn't about a country's philosophy or their approach or how they behaved. It was about their power in the global setting. Yeah, Jimmy Carter's not into that. He decides that his foreign policy is going to be based solely on how countries treat their people and the way that they behave. It's much more about what is right and wrong and not about power. And he is going to engage and focus on those countries that struggled to promote the ideas of democracy. He's a little Woodrow Wilson in his approach, and that where he's focusing on promoting freedom and liberty in countries where things are not free and there is no civil liberties. So he cuts off relations aid to countries who have abused human rights in some way, and he tries to right some of our wrongs as a nation in a international scene. One example of that is with Panama Canal. The Panama Canal has been under our control for 63 years. We forced the Panamanian people to build it after we helped their revolution, and then we kept control over it, meaning we pocketed all of the money that happened by allowing people to go through the canal. Yeah, we're going to give it back to them so that they can have that particular again flow of income and to increase their abilities as a country. And then obviously also this has an impact on our détente policy. The détente, of course, is the attempt to try and smooth over or to improve our relationship with the USSR, aka cool off the Cold War even further. Yeah, Jimmy Carter is not pleased with the way that the USSR treats their people. Again, that relationship that we'd been building under Nixon really kind of fell apart. It's not to say that we were going to be closer to war between ourselves, but it became much more tense. It became a lot harder for us to negotiate with them. There is a renewing of the SALT treaty that Nixon created, addressing weapons and launchers and stuff like that, which is a win, but oh man, the USSR is going to take our change of heart once again and launch a full scale invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. And our SALT agreement makes it that much harder for us to engage with them. So it was a very, again, them taking advantage of what's going on in this change in leadership, that's for sure. The Middle East throughout the 1960s and 70s is a fraught area. Specifically, the relationship between Israel and everyone else. That's really what it comes down to. Israel is an interesting situation because it did not exist until after World War II. For a long time, the territory that Israel inhabits today was Palestine. It's a small country that was Islamic in nature. I mean, it's smack dab in the middle of the Middle East, which is inherently Islamic. And now Israel exists without consulting the people, and it's a Jewish state. We, the United States, were fully in support of the establishment of Israel, and they are our allies, and our relationship with Israel, and then, of course, all of the countries surrounding it, Arab Islamic countries who don't like Israel. It makes our relationship, our status in the Middle East tense. It's why gas prices became so difficult for us in the 1960s and 70s, because, like I said, we're always on the wrong side of the fight. In 78, Israel is attempting to try and come up with a peace treaty with, again, Arab Israel, or sorry, I'm getting my brain all mixed up. I apologize. Arab Egypt, and they were trying to meet in Jerusalem to discuss peace. Egypt had attacked Israel twice, and they'd lost both times. In order to try and again fix this problem that we have with the Middle East and OPEC in particular, Carter, recognizing a good opportunity, decides to try and broker this peace. So the Camp David Accords is this really impressive feat of his where he invites the Egyptian president and the Israeli prime minister to Camp David, which is a presidential property in Maryland. And he's going to sit down with them, and over 12 days, they're going to reach an agreement. And this is going to settle things down in regards to Israel versus the rest of the Middle East. But that's not the only conflict that's happening here. The Middle East is a region in crisis for a long time. The next crisis that breaks out that directly impacts the United States, it happens in Iran. The United States and Iran have been allies for quite a while, actually. The Shah, or the king, had over time lost favor with his people, and a revolution breaks out. And we, of course, our relationship lies with the king of Iran. So through this revolution, we supported him openly. This kind of stuff like that. We weren't going to get involved beyond that until it was found out that the Shah was dying of cancer, and he could not receive treatment in Iran. So we brought him to the United States. When that news reached the revolutionaries in Iran, they looked at it as, again, us directly involving ourselves in this revolution. And armed students, Iranian students, seized the United States embassy and took 52 people hostage. They demanded that we return the Shah to Iran, and then they would let the hostages go. Jimmy Carter makes the very controversial decision to refuse this deal. We do not negotiate with terrorists, is the idea or the sentiment behind this. Those 52 people are going to remain held captive in Iran for 444 days. The Iran hostage crisis of 79 is something that's looked at as a major failure in the Carter administration. The way he handled it doesn't do him any favors. And what we're going to see is that in the next changing of the guard, he's not going to stick around. So that's it for today as far as notes go. You guys are working on your pardoning Nixon worksheet. It's due by tomorrow, making sure you submit it to Classroom. Also, again, the days count down. If you haven't submitted your local history project part 2, technically I'll accept it through tomorrow, but nothing past that. And every day there's more points taken. So just kind of keep that in mind. Some points are better than no points. That's always my philosophy here. So if you have questions, make sure you're shooting me emails. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a good night.